I was having y'all, your boy Rico from RicoScores, and the Washington Commanders have already reportedly virtually interviewed Ravens defensive coordinator Mike MacDonald. He's one of the top head coaching candidates just simply because he's the top head coach candidate killer out here, man. He shut down Ben Johnson and Bobby Slowick, both of their offenses in 2023, along with other elite offenses and offensive minds out there like Kyle Shanahan, just to name a few. Mike MacDonald. So we got to dive into why he could be a great head coaching candidate for us. Of course, there's always the downside of potentially getting a defensive-minded head coach like a Mike MacDonald. You got to figure out offensive coordinator, not just once, but probably multiple times over and over again. We're going to dive into why that's a thing. But Mike MacDonald alone would be a home run hire easily in my top three. There's Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, and Mike MacDonald in my top three. Firmly. Ben Johnson's still probably my number one, but Mike MacDonald may easily make the case for number two, and I could easily see why anybody would have him as number one. We're going to dive into a lot of crazy Ravens defensive stats, like elite level stuff. Also, there's competition out there for his services. We got to talk about some of the teams that have already interviewed him as well. And we got to talk about how Ravens fans are running entire campaigns on social media to fight to keep him. Like, I'm seeing like defamation stuff on Twitter from Ravens fans to try to make him look non-appealing to other fan bases. Like, don't hire him. He's doing this and stuff like that, just making stuff up. Of course, it's all jokes, it's fun, but that just shows how much they really want him. And some Ravens fans are dead serious about even hoping that John Harbaugh retires after this season just so they can keep Mike MacDonald. Just go ahead and promote him so you don't have to lose him. We're gonna dive into all of that and more, but before we do, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you follow those instructions on the screen, man. That big red button, you gotta press it, man. Why not? This is your one-stop shop for everything Commanders, every little bit of news. Even if it's just a rumor, we're going to acknowledge it as a rumor. We're going to talk about it as if, okay, this may not have necessarily happened, but if it did, why we should want this thing to happen, and also why we shouldn't want this thing to happen. Y'all know how I am, Rico of RicoScores. We do deep dives into everything. That's why like none of my videos end up ever being less than 20 minutes, because I'm always looking at it from ridiculous angles. I apologize for the videos being so long. I apologize for these intros being so long, but I just want to go ahead and give y'all the heads up that I'm literally trying to do like 2-3 videos a day. I have so much content to work on, and let's just go ahead and get to this video before I go on a whole nother rant. Let's get it. All right, so as of January 11th, I mean, I'm recording this January 13th, 3 a.m., but kind of, to me, it feels like it was yesterday, technically. January 11th, it was confirmed that Mike MacDonald had some Zoom interviews with teams at night, and so the Commanders are one of those teams. Again, there's competition out there for them. We're going to talk about that towards the end of the video, but I am excited about this, man. Of course, when it comes to interviews, just to do a quick little breakdown, shouts out to Nicky Jhabvala, because I did like a full-blown reading paragraphs of information breakdown on when we can interview coaches and why, depending on what situations and stuff like that. But just to put it really simply, again, to read the Nicky Jhabvala tweet from also January 11th, for candidates in the playoffs, only those with a wild card bye can interview virtually at this time. That's only the Ravens and 49ers. If you're trying to get a coach from one of those teams, those are the only ones that are technically allowed to do virtual interviews at this point. And you know the Commanders are moving fast on everything. I mean, just how quickly we interviewed all of the GMs, and then we narrowed it down to Adam Peters, Ian Cunningham within the next 2 days after the first interview we had with them. And then the next day, we hired Adam Peters in a 4-day process of interviewing him for the first time and then hiring him. So you already know we were on it with Mike MacDonald immediately. We were probably the first team to virtually interview with the guy. I remember we were definitely at least from my point of view, the first team to request an interview with him. And to continue on, those with wildcard games have to wait until after 3 days after their game. And then in-person interviews for head coaches can't even start until after the divisional round. Just to go ahead and give you the heads up there, just to put it simply, in how this basically pertains to like a Mike MacDonald when we can actually talk to him in person. All of that type of stuff. Of course, he has to be done with the playoffs, and so if he goes on to win the Super Bowl, it'll probably be a long time. We'll see how that goes. But Mike MacDonald, as far as head coaching interviews, said when he was asked about it, quote, "This is the first time I'm going through it. You just have to deal with how it's structured," unquote. So this is all new to him. This is his first hiring cycle where he's getting head coaching calls and stuff like that, and I'm pretty sure that's pretty intriguing for him. So he's probably going to try to do his best to take his time, not get overexcited and jump the gun on anything. So he's probably going to do his due diligence and probably talk to everybody. Whereas Ben Johnson, he's already been through this. He went through this last year. He turned down every job, most notably the Panthers head coaching opportunity, and then in a completely different answer, like just the complete opposite of what Mike MacDonald is probably going to do. When he was asked a couple of days ago about all of the interview requests he's receiving, he literally said, like, I'm probably not even going to talk to all of those teams. He probably already has a set few teams, or maybe just one team, and hopefully we're that team, but probably already has a set few teams that he has his eyes on. He's not even going to do just random interviews for random teams that he has no plans of going to. Whereas Mike MacDonald, this is his first time going around. You even have Lions defensive coordinator Anthony Glenn saying he's probably going to at least do every interview that's requested from every team and things like that. So be on the lookout for that. But now let's talk about who Mike MacDonald is and why he is arguably the top head coaching candidate of this hiring cycle. Super slept on. First of all, very young. So he's one of those young prodigy type of guys, but usually those guys are offensive. On the offensive side of things, he's defensive, which is really interesting. But Daniel Jeremiah tweeted out on January 1st, everyone in the NFL is going to go after defensive coaches from Michigan and Baltimore. That scheme is generating so much buzz. And you know Daniel Jeremiah, usually a lot of his things are not even necessarily opinion. It's more so based on what he's hearing. Like even when he does a lot of his mock drafts, it's based on what teams, insiders from different teams are telling him, more so than what he would want to do with his mock drafts. Daniel Jeremiah is really just like a close source from NFL teams. He has the inside scoop on what a lot of executives and scouts are thinking and saying and stuff like that. So apparently there's going to be a lot of competition out there to try to get these coaches from Michigan and Baltimore. And guess who's from both? Mike MacDonald. You can argue the scheme that the Michigan Wolverines, I like to call them the Tigers just to make fun of them, like just get a normal mascot, dog. You can argue that the scheme that they just won the national championship with still had a lot of Mike MacDonald in it. And then, of course, what the Ravens are doing right now, having the best defense in the NFL. Come on, dog. Let's take a look at the ranks and the stats. They were first in opponents' points allowed per game in the 2023 season with 16.5. They were sixth in yards allowed per game. They were first in opponents' points per play allowed with only 0.252. And they were third in opponents' yards per play allowed with 4.6. And then third down conversion wise, they were seventh, which is like their worst stat. And then fourth down conversion, they were second in allowed. And then red zone scoring percentage touchdown wise, they were second in allowed in that as well. And they were first in opponents touchdowns allowed per game, only allowing 1.5 touchdowns per game. That's elite stuff, man. That is like really ridiculous, man. That is scary. And when you're looking at like turnover margin stuff, they rank first in opponent turnover margin per game. They ranked first in takeaways per game. All of that, man. Like these guys were different. Did you know, and I talked about this in a previous video, maybe you've already seen it, maybe you already heard me say it or not, but for those of y'all that may not know, the Ravens are the first team in modern NFL history to finish a season leading the league in all three of these stats. Scoring defense, again, only allowing 16.5 points per game, sacks with 60, and takeaways with 31. The first defense to ever do that in modern NFL history. That is insane stuff, man, especially in a passing league like this. We're going to talk about that later, though. And out of the 7 Ravens 2023 Pro Bowlers, 4 of them are defensive, with one of them being a second-year guy, and my dog Kyle Hamilton from Atlanta. I've been rooting for him since he's been even coming out of the Atlanta area from high school, going to Notre Dame, I still felt like UGA let one slip by him. We should have had him. We should have never let him go to Notre Dame. I'm still pretty upset about that, but I've been rooting for him the whole way, and I'm so happy to see him being so productive. I'm sick that the Commanders had a chance to get him, and we didn't take him. And then 3 of those 4 defensive Pro Bowlers are first-time Pro Bowlers with Kyle Hamilton, Justin Madubuike, and Patrick Queen. Like, this guy is out here making guys careers where, I mean, he just got there in the 2022 season, and by this 2023 season, he has all of these guys making their first Pro Bowls. I think that's very significant. Also, Mike MacDonald embarrassed the supposed top 2 head coaching candidates this year. Had Ben Johnson and Bobby Slowick looking like they're barely even offensive coordinator candidates, let alone head coaching candidates. He demoted both of them boys after he played them, man. When the Ravens played Bobby Slowick and the Texans, they won 25-9. And how did the Ravens hold the Texans to 9 points and 268 yards in 72 plays? 9 points after 72 offensive plays is crazy, especially since the Texans only had 1 turnover, so you can't even blame it on turnovers. It was just complete shutdown, lockdown. Again, in this modern NFL passing league era that we're in right now is wild. And then when the Ravens played Ben Johnson and the Lions, they held them to even less points, just 6 of them. 337 total yards in 72 plays, and all they got was 6 points? And again, no crazy amount of turnovers to blame it on. Like, oh, maybe it was a little fluky. Maybe the Lions were making mistakes. Maybe the Texans were making mistakes. No, these are 1 turnover each of these games. No fumbles in the Lions game, just 1 interception thrown by Jared Goff. Statistically, wasn't even one of his worst games this season, arguably. And don't forget how he made, who was for some reason getting MVP consideration at the time from a lot of people, Brock Purdy have his worst game of his life. People haven't even mentioned Brock Purdy an MVP since, except for to say he's not an MVP candidate and it belongs to Lamar Jackson. And don't forget all of the Pro Bowlers and All Pros that are on that team, that Kyle Shanahan running the show, and the same team that we got the Adam Peters from, who constructed arguably the best roster in the 49ers in the NFL. Come on, dog. If there's a coordinator that Adam Peters has faced all season that he probably respects the most from what they did against his team from a scheme and a play calling standpoint, is probably Mike MacDonald. He made that great team that Adam Peters built, put together, that he helped put together, and the reason that we love Adam Peters and we're so excited about getting him, he made that team look stupid and completely nullified Adam Peters' impact and genius of even having any sort of influence on the outcome of that game. Like, he made them look stupid. Like, yeah, Adam Peters, you're a genius. Kyle Shanahan, you're a genius. You have all of these all pros and Pro Bowlers, but let me show you something real quick. That's what Mike MacDonald said to them boys when they played them. And then the Ravens also beat the Dolphins 56-19. Now, that's both offense, but also, of course, a defense as well. That man held arguably one of the most explosive offenses in NFL history to 19 points. Mike McDaniel is another one of those genius offensive-minded head coaches, but at the end of the day, he's just another Mike MacDonald victim. Plain and simple, man. Talk your stuff, Mike MacDonald. You deserve it, man, for the season that you put together in 2023. That's insane, man. I mean, Mike MacDonald was probably in all of these elite NFL minds' nightmares this season. Made Ben Johnson, Adam Peters, Bobby Slowick, Mike McDaniels, Kyle Shanahan, all of these guys have terrible Monday mornings this season. Like, they wake up on Monday after Sunday like, man, what did I just go through? They wake up in a cold sweat, like that Dwayne Wade, Kevin Durant commercial or something like that. And I really, if you could just take some time to allow me to emphasize how impressive that is in this modern NFL. It's a passing league. I'ma say it again. Great offenses are naturally supposed to beat great defenses with the way that the NFL is currently structured. Offense leads to points, points lead to more views, and more views lead to more money. The NFL literally wants the offense to have advantages in every way possible over defenses, and have literally set up the rules in a way for that to actually happen. So just imagine if Mike MacDonald and this Ravens defense was in the 80s, man. they'd probably be historical. They are shutting down elite offenses in an offense golden era, in a time when the NFL has literally changed the rule for the offense to consistently win as much as possible. Like, I don't think y'all are truly understanding what Mike MacDonald is doing right now. And then also, I love how he explains things. He talks very well. I mean, he did like a whole 9-minute presentation explaining how he simplified the verbiage and teaching and reduced the memorization of their pressure calls and things like that. He did like a whole PowerPoint presentation, explained everything. He basically said, problem, too many words, tags, families, too much memorization, reinvent will every next week. And so he basically said, how do we make this fixable, learnable, and likable? And then he does a whole 9-minute presentation on how he did just that and why the Ravens literally have the #1 defense in the NFL. And on top of that, the way that he designs his defenses, shouts out to RjMenin100 on Twitter for saying this. Some fun stats on how Mike MacDonald has disguised his defense this year. 5th in simulated pressure rate, 8th in stunt rate, 5th in post-snap safety rotation rate, 4th in mixing up defensive coverages, 6th highest rate of unblocked pressures, and 5th highest rate of too high coverages. So if you want to know how Mike MacDonald's defense works, those are some of the most important parts of it right there. Also, look at this chart right here. Same Twitter account, RjMenin100. And this is a chart showing how predictable NFL defensive coverage schemes are using Shannon entropy and how that translates to their defensive efficiency against the pass. Mike MacDonald and Spags mix what coverages they call more than anybody else and get great returns from an efficiency perspective as well. So the x-axis is coverage scheme, Shannon entropy percentile, and the y-axis is EPA per drop back allowed. And the Ravens are arguably the best team on this chart doing it right now, man. And then you see the Commanders all the way at the bottom, which is just absolutely shameful right there. Also, same Twitter account. Final update on cash spent on defense in 2023 and defensive efficiency allowed. So the Jets basically got what they paid for. Mike MacDonald is amazing. Seahawks lose Sean Desai for 1 season and show up awful in this chart. And look at the Ravens, where they are. It's for retrospective, so you can say them and the Browns are the best defense in the NFL as far as being efficient with not spending a ridiculous amount of money. And you would argue that Mike MacDonald is doing the best job as far as not spending a lot of money and his defense still being elite. It looks like the Ravens spent like bottom 10 in money, but at the same time, they're top 2 in EPA per play allowed. Like, come on, dog. How can you beat that, man? And then, like I said before the intro video, man, Ravens fans are not playing. If you just type in Mike MacDonald on Twitter, you're just gonna have a great time laughing because they are not playing. Between begging them to stay or putting up propaganda and a defamation campaign to basically make them undesirable to other teams out there, it is hilarious, man. People are saying you can't let Mike MacDonald go, leave Baltimore after this season, do whatever it takes to keep him here, all kinds of stuff. And there are even Ravens fans hoping that they win the Super Bowl this year so that John Harbaugh retires so that Mike MacDonald can take over. They really don't want to lose this guy, which makes getting him even more attractive, man. And you know you got to be special when both the Harbaugh brothers love you. You can argue that defensive scheme that Michigan is using, that they just won the national championship with, still has a lot of prints and influence from Mike MacDonald. And again, for both Harbaugh brothers to love you, both Michigan, he was just a Michigan defensive coordinator as of just 2021, and then he's been the Ravens defensive coordinator since 2022. Both Harbaugh brothers, Jim and John. I'm telling you, man, you got to be doing something right. And then, of course, you knew it was on the way. If there's a bulldog, I'ma find him. You can't go wrong with a Georgia Bulldog, man. You already see what Todd Monken and Mike MacDonald are doing. Got them Ravens looking like the best team in the NFL. Todd Monken on the offensive side and Mike MacDonald from the Ravens side. But Mike MacDonald is like a straight up Georgia Bulldog, like through and through. Like he's from Georgia, went to UGA, got his coaching started UGA. So you already know he's got my vote just off of that alone. You know, but I'm biased though. I would love to get a Georgia Bulldog in here any way possible, coaching staff, player, whatever. But like I keep saying, of course, when you hire a defensive-minded head coach, there are things you have to worry about. Most notably, you have to hit on offensive coordinator, especially when you're more than likely drafting a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick in the draft. That means the offensive coordinator needs to be both a great offense designer, play caller, and all that type of stuff, scheme, and he needs to be a great QB developer, because you're more than likely getting a rookie quarterback that still has a lot of weaknesses to his game. I mean, there's elite quarterbacks in this upcoming draft, but all of these guys, Caleb Williams, Drake May, and Jaden Daniels, have weaknesses they need to work on. So that next defensive coordinator needs to be great at that. And then, because NFL teams are usually looking for the next great offensive-minded offensive coordinator to be their head coach, and they're trying to steal them to make them their head coach, giving them more power, control, and money. Now you have to do it again, and probably really soon, man. Bobby Slowick just got there with the Texans, and he's already in this rotation of top head coaching candidates out there. So like, even if you do hit on offensive coordinator the first time, which is already really difficult, get ready to have to do it again and again and again and again, because every time you hit on the offensive coordinator, there's going to be at least several teams out there trying to steal them and make them their head coach. Now, the Lions got lucky with Ben Johnson, where he stayed an extra year. You got Darrell Bevell over there for the Dolphins, staying as a passing game coordinator. He just must love it there. Sometimes you get lucky, but more times than not, those guys leave for more power, control, and money, and I can't blame them. So when you have a defensive-minded head coach, just already assume the defensive coordinator is going to be a rotating door, and you're going to have to hope to hit multiple times on that. Just warning you. And again, this is a passing league. I know how great Mike MacDonald is. He had a ridiculous, legendary 2023 season as a defensive coordinator. But do we truly believe that that can hold up, that we can continue to win games without the right offensive coordinator and QB developer? Can we do that consistently for the next few years? You got to hit on offensive coordinator. No matter how great Mike MacDonald is, you got to hit on offensive coordinator. But also, there's competition out there for him. He's already been requested for interviews by other teams. Not sure he's exactly already interviewed with yet, like these preliminary virtual interviews wise, or if he's accepted them or not, if he plans on doing them or not. But we have the Falcons, Titans, and Panthers, just to go ahead and throw that out there. And before we get up out of here, I already updated y'all on the Washington Commanders' next head coaching odds according to Sports Betting AG and all of that. Of course, Ben Johnson's number 1 by far. Second place isn't even close, but second place is Bill Belichick, who we already know has been confirmed through a lot of sources close to the Commanders, including John Com, that we will not be hiring Bill Belichick as our next head coach. Like, it's not even like an unlikely thing. It's just been straight up, no, we aren't. And so Bobby Slowick is third. But again, out of realistic options is Ben Johnson, then Bobby Slowick, just ignore Bill Belichick, then Jim Harbaugh, and then Mike MacDonald. Technically fifth with Bill Belichick included, but you take out Bill Belichick, he's fourth. So Mike MacDonald is in the top 4 of realistic options to become our next head coach according to betting odds out there, and I'm excited for it, man. You can't go wrong between Ben Johnson, Bobby Slowick, and Mike MacDonald. You can't go wrong, and for the reasons I've already explained in this video, all of the evidence I provided to you, you could easily make a case that Mike MacDonald is the top head coaching candidate this offseason, and I wouldn't be surprised if Adam Peters prioritizes him over all of the other guys. I think Ben Johnson's probably number 1 in his eyes, also number 1 in my eyes as well. But we hire Mac MacDonald, I'm doing the same amount of backflips and furniture flipping, even as if we hired Ben Johnson. You can't miss with those top 3 guys, and for the reasons I've already explained. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get a notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. 3:30 a.m. still working, man. I appreciate y'all for staying patient with me, all these videos that I'm coming out with. I really appreciate those of y'all who are watching every video that I put out, not just watching the first video and then ignoring the rest, watching every video. Y'all are the GOATs, man. I appreciate all y'all leaving likes, everybody leaving comments. Again, I'm doing my best to try to read and reply to as many comments as possible. I have so many to get to, but I've just been so busy working on these videos. So I apologize to y'all. Really trying my best to get to those. Stay tuned. Again, your one-stop shop for all Commanders news, rumors, reports, opinions, all of that. And I'm working on exclusive footage for channel members only. So once we start to have a period where things die down, probably after we hire our next head coach and stuff like that, I will probably go ahead and start to dive into that. And also be on the lookout because I will be live streaming Saturday, January 13th at 4 p.m. We'll do a call-in show for y'all to call in and voice your opinions about this whole Adams-Peters hiring and who you want as a potential head coach, all of that type of stuff. And we'll be watching playoff games together at the same time. So stay tuned. Catch y'all later. I'm out.